Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo.
And it's a Thursday morning. It is August 13th, 2026. Thank you for tuning in to EWTN Radio. We have another great program for you coming up. We have Father Mitch Pacwa after your news and your weather, of course. So many things to discuss, so little time. Sometimes I feel like I need a 5 or 6 hour show because there's so many important issues. Father Mitch will probably be talking to us about our big anniversary coming up at the network this week, of course, but also we would like his reaction to the elections and where we go from here and what does it mean for us as Catholics. So we will discuss. There's also an interesting effort, a very important one that's being undertaken in my home state, for my home state, I should say, for Catholics here in Michigan, regarding the election of the Senate because of El Sayed, who was running as a socialist and someone who has now said he doesn't like Mackinac Island or fireworks or dogs. He's pulling all kinds of different YouTube videos from his sites because he realizes that he is in trouble with those really, how do you want to say, extreme comments? That's putting it mildly. So we'll get Father Mitch's reaction to what's happening because he's been on target with all of these types of politicians. He's been talking about this for months since we really started to see this unroll earlier this year as we move closer to the midterms. And then speaking of the midterms, Penny Nance, who's the CEO of the wonderful organization Concerned Woman for America, is going to be talking to us about the election and also in terms of how moms are facing affordability. We'll talk about as many issues as we can, especially the issue of sports fairness and what's happening in women's basketball right now, which is kind of the big spotlight when we come to the gender ideology. So we'll talk with Penny about a few things in the news that affect us as believers. That's coming up in the first hour. Hour number 2 in 2 cents. Wait till you hear this audio from this very, very concerned teacher down in Texas. This is a story that was on the New York Post this morning, and they have his Instagram video embedded in the stories. You can watch it when you go to their website. We'll play the audio for you, though, in 2 cents. And it really highlights the problems with public education and what, for example, the Cardinal Newman Society is trying to do in terms of give families other opportunities. Now, what's sad about this is that a lot of families, and this is something that Catholic schools are talking about as well, can't afford private schools. It's very difficult because it's very expensive. And so you may not have an option but to send them to public school unless you are not working outside the home and can homeschool. And this poor teacher burst into tears. He's teaching seniors in high school, and he burst into tears because he realizes that they can't read, and that he gets blamed for the problem. He says those who are criticizing him in the education system, I think this is down in Houston, are saying, well, it's his fault. He shouldn't even be speaking on this. Of course, let's kill the messenger, shoot the messenger. So we'll take a look at that and what the scripture says about teaching our children and also, of course, our Catholic faith. And then wrapping up with a very important topic that is actually in our news this morning and on the EWTN News website. This is a lawsuit that has been filed to block the state of Illinois pushing suicide on parents. So we'll talk about this with Mike McHale, Senior Counsel with the Thomas More Society, and we'll have a story on that. It's also, as I said, on EWTNnews.com. Let's take a look at the weather on a Thursday morning. We have an active pattern, according to the National Weather Service, continuing to bring heavy to excessive rainfall and flash flooding threats to the Midwest and the Ohio Valley over the next few days. So not just today, but through the weekend. Dangerous heat continuing across the central southern plains and the southeastern part of the country. That will hang on until next week. And there is a potential for record-tying breaking temperatures, high temperatures, with many areas forecast to see their hottest temperatures so far this year. That's a quick look at the forecast. Now we need to take a look at your news. It's 4 minutes past the hour. Let's see what's happening around the world and in the church here on EWTN on a Thursday. Rescue efforts in Western Colombia continuing today. The death toll from Monday's catastrophic 7.4 magnitude earthquake has risen now to 265, with nearly 500 people still missing, thousands hurt. International search teams are on the ground using cranes and heavy equipment to dig through flattened buildings in the hardest hit cities. Local officials say they are still detecting signs of life beneath the rubble and are desperately racing against the clock to save more people. And Claudia Torres with Vatican News is telling us the Holy Father is sending a check to the diocese in Colombia that was struck by that deadly earthquake on Monday.
Pope Leo XIV has expressed his solidarity with the people of Colombia, devastated by the powerful 7.4 magnitude earthquake that struck the western part of the country. He conveyed his closeness during Wednesday's general audience held on August 12, when he renewed his condolences and prayers for the victims. But it has also taken concrete form through an initial emergency financial contribution sent by the Pope through the Dicastery for the Service of Charity. The funds are intended for dioceses affected by the earthquake and follow from discussions between the prefect, Archbishop Luis Marín de San Martín, the Apostolic Nunciature in Colombia, and the local bishops' conference. As he did for Venezuela, which was also struck by a powerful earthquake in June, the Pope immediately sent an initial financial contribution to Colombia as a concrete sign of solidarity. The sum of $100,000 was sent directly to the National Secretariat for Social Pastoral Care, Caritas Colombia of the Bishops' Conference, which serves as a centralized coordination center for the collection and distribution of aid. The organization will ensure that the assistance reaches the dioceses affected by the earthquake. The amount was agreed upon with the recipients and represents a first contribution intended to address the most immediate needs. Further concrete assistance will follow as needs are identified and promptly communicated to the dicastery. Indeed, dialogue begun in the first hours after the disaster continues unabated between the Apostolic Almoner, Archbishop Luis Marín de San Martín, and the president of the Colombian Bishops' Conference, Cardinal Francisco Javier Munera Correa, who briefed to the Almoner on the situation in the affected areas. Meanwhile, a report is being prepared to assess the most urgent needs, again at the initiative of the Dicastery for the Service of Charity. This outreach, the Apostolic Almoner explained, demonstrates the Church as a family of God, a Church attentive to suffering and need, responding with fraternity and efficiency. I'm Claudia Torres.
Attorneys of the man accused of killing conservative commentator Charlie Kirk want the death penalty taken off the table. In a newly filed motion, they're asking the judge to strike the aggravating factor that makes Tyler Robinson eligible for capital punishment. The defense arguing the state has failed to provide probable cause that Robinson knowingly created a risk of death to another other than Charlie Kirk. They go on to say that Robinson had only one target and that the bullet fired at Kirk from a rooftop during a Turning Point USA event at Utah Valley University did not put anyone else in danger. The Bishop of Springfield, Illinois, is joining a Lutheran nursing home and a group of doctors to sue the state over its assisted suicide law, with the coalition arguing the state's suicide regime abandons nearly 2 millennia of medical practice while requiring doctors or requiring objectors to take part in it. The suit brought in U.S. District Court by Bishop Thomas Paprocki, as EWTNnews.com explains. Also, the Lutheran Care Center and 4 Illinois-based doctors arguing the Illinois End-of-Life Options Law requires doctors to take part in helping patients kill themselves, even if they conscientiously object to doing so. Healthcare entities, meanwhile, must promote the benefits of the suicide law to patients, even if they object. The suit says those providers are also required to allow on-site practitioners to facilitate patient access to assisted suicide. The lawsuit also arguing that both the doctors and the Lutheran nursing facility cannot in good conscience comply with that law, also adding that the bishop is obligated to uphold the U.S. Bishops' Catholic Health Care Service directives forbidding Catholic health facilities from taking part in assisted suicide. Tammy Trujillo tells us a Texas court is ruling that a child in utero with a rare heart defect that's being carried by a surrogate must receive life-saving treatment after birth.
The ruling comes after the intended parents, who live in California, requested an abortion after finding out about the heart defect. The surrogate was about 20 weeks pregnant when the defect was diagnosed. The Office of Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton said the surrogate then traveled from Alaska to Texas for protection. The defect must usually be treated by 3 surgeries, and Paxton's office alleges the intended parents could try to move the baby out of Texas following the first surgery. The would-be parents have requested a California court to order the surrogate to give birth in their home state. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
Social media going on trial. Jury selection getting underway yesterday in California in a trial against Meta. This after a U.S. appeals court declined to dismiss thousands of online safety lawsuits against major social media companies. That lawsuit alleging platforms owned by companies such as Meta and TikTok encourage addictive behavior, fail to properly verify users' ages, and do not do enough to protect the users from harmful content. Mark Mayfield tells us the Midwest preparing for yet another round, as we mentioned in the weather, of severe conditions.
Forecasters are warning of severe thunderstorm activity today and tonight from eastern Nebraska to northern Kentucky, with the highest risk in parts of Iowa, Missouri, Indiana, and central Illinois. Those in the path of the storm can expect wind gusts of up to 60 miles per hour, as well as isolated tornadoes and flash flooding from heavy rain. Rising rivers are possible across the region and washed-out roads. Forecasters warn heavy rain in the area could persist for hours at a time. I'm Mark Mayfield.
Thousands are being evacuated. Hundreds of homes are being threatened as wildfires continue to rage across the West. In northern Nevada, the sheriff of Washoe County says over 5,000 people have now been displaced by the fires, which have destroyed over 100,000 acres in that area, with only 3% containment at last check. In Oregon, the big grass fire burning over 570,000 acres and is now the largest in that state's history. And California crews trying again today to fight the timber fire near Big Sur after falling back yesterday because of lightning. The fire near Highway 1 is only 5% contained. And Liz Warner tells us 11 New Yorkers arrested and charged by the Department of Justice over a multi-state and multi-million-dollar green card marriage scam.
While the practice itself isn't exactly new, the scale here is significant.
This is one of the largest marriage fraud prosecutions in United States history.
Attorney General Todd Blanche said since 2016, 11 suspects from New York City, Ossining, and Peekskill arranged more than 1,000 sham unions. Primarily Chinese nationals were paired up with U.S. citizens who were paid $100,000 to become bogus spouses. They got green cards soon after the couples tied the knot. Wedding venues and sham banquets were arranged, complete with photographers and social media posts to make everything appear legitimate. In New York, I'm Liz Warner.
Caroline Leavitt set to leave her role as White House press secretary at the end of the month. The president making the announcement on Truth Social. The president saying that she's one of the most trusted aides and is stepping down so she can spend more time with her family. Two of President Trump's cabinet secretaries are blasting the Los Angeles Homeless Services authorities after a visit to L.A. Department of Housing and Urban Development Secretary Scott Turner and Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. accuse the organizations of mismanagement and corruption.
I think it's been operated like a racket. County-run facilities are just a disaster. And then, there's so much fraud in all of them.
They're also vowing to withhold HUD dollars from the organization if there's still no accountability. This, as a federal judge considers suspending the Regional Homeless Agency. The suspension of the funding blocks LAHSA from seeking about $240 million in homeless funds that are due August 26. Turner and Kennedy are advocating for faith-based recovery programs and transitional housing rather than the housing first model. They say LA's approach is enabling addiction rather than results in terms of improving people's lives. And the Woodward Dream Cruise, if you're heading to Michigan, here's a fun story. If you're going to be vacationing in the Midwest anytime soon, it's taking place this week all over Metro Detroit in 9 Detroit suburbs. If you like cars, the cruise is billed as the world's largest one-day automotive event, running from the town of Ferndale all the way up to Pontiac, which is a big stretch, about 10 to 12 miles. Around 1 million people and 30,000 vehicles are expected to take part on Saturday. And we get a lot of people from around the country and the world. We'll be right back. It's fun. It's a Thursday morning on EWTN's Catholic Connection. You know what that means if you're a regular listener. And if you are, we so appreciate you. We appreciate all our new listeners as well. Thanks for tuning in, and always grateful for the contributions of the amazing Father Mitch Pacwa. We do 2 segments every Thursday, Cultural Connections. Okay, Father, I couldn't wait to speak with you this morning. Always love to have you on, but you have been really talking about this for months and months leading into the primaries. And of course, we have the midterms coming up in November, regarding what's happening with these socialist communist candidates. Now, it was a mixed bag this week. Now, the big race that they were watching this week, of course, was the gubernatorial primary race in Wisconsin. They were expecting this far leftist Francesca Hong to win. She did not. She lost narrowly by a few thousand votes. But the man who won that primary contest and is heading for campaigning for governor there, has now opened his tent and welcomed her strongly into his campaign. And to me, that seems like, okay, they are so afraid of these people that even when they lose an election, they have to include them somehow.
A couple things. One, that the energy behind Ms. Hung is stronger than it is for the rest of the party. I was talking to a friend of mine, and it reminds both of us of the Tea Party movement from a few years ago in the Republican Party, where there was so much dissatisfaction with the regular candidate that at the primary level, folks who didn't know exactly what they're doing, but were fueled by discontent with the existing politicians, won the nominations and then couldn't pull it off. And the party couldn't work with them. Well, this is similar to what's going on with the Democrats right now. They are you have a lot of people who in the Democratic Party who are upset with the party. And they have a certain reason. I mean, they lost twice to Donald Trump. People are not happy with that, of course. And then you had Joe Biden, who, even though he did get a lot of left-leaning policies, he wasn't someone who could pull the party together because he had some apparent issues with his ability to think and such. He had diminished mental ability. So given that there is this rejection of the party, and also, I'd say one other factor in the Democratic Party, the older members have clung onto power and have not pulled out younger leaders. I think that's one of the things that Mr. Trump is doing, is he is encouraging Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance and Pete Hegseth and others, the governor of Florida. These different folks are younger men who are coming up. There's a number of younger women. He likes to help younger people move their way up step by step into a position of leadership. The Democrats have kept a closed system, and you see lots of elders. Now you've got a group of young Democrats who are rebelling against the situation. The people in the middle-aged folks who should have been trained for years to move forward in the party are not there. And so you have this geriatric ward leading the party, and then a group of very young, inexperienced, ideological leftists coming in with energy to and backed by other young idealists from the universities and such, who are backing them in these primaries, and they're winning the primaries except for Ms. Hong. Mm-hmm. And I think this is another part of the problem that they have. And the party, of course, is right now, the other candidate for governor in Wisconsin is he's come up through the ranks more than Ms. Hong did. No, he's been in county officialdom in Wisconsin. He's got some background in administration as a politician, but he doesn't. He doesn't have that energetic backing that the far left, gives, and that's what he's looking for. Mm-hmm. And the older members of the party, I don't know who would be senior members of the party in the Democratic Party in Wisconsin. But I don't see them around. I don't see them trying to guide these people. And you look at, again, fairly old Democratic Party advisors who are, their hands are in the air. I hear them on a number of stations.
Well, Carvel, James Carvel is saying this. Even Bill Maher is saying it.
The loudest of them. Mm-hmm. Doug Schoen is another one. And these are these kind of folks who've been around the party and hold more traditional Democratic Party values. They're up in the arms up in the air and upset. Why are you doing this? This is messing things up. But you don't have leadership. The leadership of the Democratic Party, the old folks, are furious that this other old guy, Donald Trump, is there, and they're so focused on that old guy and getting him, stopping him. They hate him. They want him out of office, and they have neglected the needs of the people, and they have neglected to develop their leadership. And so their leaders, the younger leaders, are going rogue to a Marxist interpretation. And like most Marxists I've met over the years, I was just in Peru last week.
Right.
And it reminded me of how I met a big series. There must have been 20 different Marxist and socialist leaders that I met with, all the way from the military government down to some Chinese-style Marxists. They're proven, but they use China's policies, Russia's policies, Yugoslavian style, and all these different models. And met with these people, and I said, I don't trust a single one of them. They didn't care about ideology. They just wanted themselves in power. And that's what I sense going on with these Marxists. I'll come up with this new idea, new plans, new cultural values, and then I'll get in power. And when I'm in charge, it'll really work. And as we saw in Peru, one of the Chinese communist parties became the Sendero Luminoso, this terrorist group that enslaved people in the jungle to gather coca leaves, make cocaine for them to finance the revolution. They were evil and nuts. I think so far what we just see is that we have people with Marxist ideology who do not understand how the economy works, how administration.
They also don't know how they're going to activate these their beliefs. There was a head of one of the leaders of the DSA was on, I think it was the New Yorker, on a podcast, and she was asked point blank, "Okay, you want to tax billionaires? Oh, we want to tax the heck out of billionaires." I'm paraphrasing that because there were some expletives that she used. And then the interviewer said, "Well, okay, how are you going to do that?" And she was dead silent. And she said, "Well, I'm working on it." He said, "Well, if you're saying something so extreme, don't you think you should have a plan?" And so they're just spouting all of these things, trying to attract people. And at the end of the day, they don't know history and they don't know what the heck they're talking about. More with Father Mitch Pacwa when we come back. Father Mitch Pacwa joining us every Thursday. Glad to have him back stateside. He was traveling last week, as he mentioned, to Peru. We talk cultural connections every week. So much going on. Father giving us his thoughts, as he has actually, very articulately as always, and with great historical background, the situation that we're seeing in our country with these growing socialists and communists gaining a lot of traction. Father, I know you wanted to wrap up some thoughts. I was telling you the problems they're having in Michigan with this candidate now for Senate who won the Democratic primary, El Sayed, who now has been caught. He's trying to take down, I think so far he's taken down over 100 videos from his YouTube page because all of his extreme views, he wants to appear now as a moderate, that he loves America. Meanwhile, he said I hate fireworks. I hate Mackinac Island. I hate this place. Mackinac Island, you can't get any more Americana than a Mackinac Island, especially in the summertime. Doesn't like dogs and all these things that really represent, life in America. And this is where these people are. And so many people are frustrated maybe with the economy. We can understand that if they're struggling to pay groceries. But to elect these people, you have to think, as Catholics, are responsible to really understand what's happening in the world and how our faith applies. It's very frightening, Father.
I would remind people of the way that the Communist Party wrote history. When they would write their annual books on how the party's doing, they would be bragging about how the 5-year plan is moving and so on. You would see photographs of different individuals and other groups of party leaders. But when they would reprint the same photograph, one or other guy would be gone. They removed they photoshopped his picture out. This is back in the 20s. Well, that's how the CIA used to know that they were dead. It is a communist deal that when you have something in the past you don't like, you change the picture. They've been doing that since the Bolshevik Revolution. And Syed is no different than the propagandists of Vladimir Lenin and Joseph Stalin. He's doing exactly the same thing for his own life because he can't stand it. And the thing that I would point out to Michiganders, my family moved to Michigan after I was in the Jesuits, and my brother still lives there. And when I found my family eventually, anyway, they couldn't get away from me, try as they might. But I've been to Mackinac Island a number of times, and it's not only Americana.
It's peaceful.
It is beautiful. It is quiet and peaceful, and he hates it. Remember that. That's the key to understanding what he's saying. He wants agitation. That is the nature of the Marxist. And he would rather have ugly efficiency, the way communist architecture used to be, than the simply very beautiful and delicate beauty of a place like Mackinac Island.
Do you hear how he's trying to spin it now? His campaign is trying to spin it as saying, well, he was referring to the Mackinac Conference, which is a public policy conference they have with political leaders and business leaders early and late spring, like in May, usually around May and June. Now he's saying, I was saying I hate the Mackinac Conference. It's like, no, you weren't.
No,
you were saying
not.
I hate that place. Mackinac Island.
He was saying it on the side. He wasn't professing something about a country.
Right.
He was saying this on the side because he does hate it.
Yep.
And this is where people have to hold his feet to the fire on what's going on. And if you say, no, I really want a change in society so badly that I'll go along with the lie. This is a case of the emperor walking around naked, and people saying, no, the clothes are beautiful. He's exposed himself over the years in these videos. Obviously, people still have them. They copied him before he could remove them. And this is exactly what happened in Soviet Union. Everybody over in Michigan of East European background needs to replay some of those past memories of where their families were. My family was in Eastern Europe. A couple of my cousins were put in concentration camps by the Nazis. Others worked in the communist-run Poland. All of it. And remember that history. We cannot afford to make ourselves stupid. And as a matter of fact, this is what Syed and others are doing. They're trying to make us stupid. And if somebody tries to make you stupid about facts, things that happen that you saw in front of your eyes, and say, no, that didn't happen, it is in order to manipulate and control you. That is exactly what the Khrushchev, Stalin, and Lenin did in the Soviet Union, and this is no different. And we have to say, no, you have to include not a denial of what is true about what you believe and said. You have to figure out a way of telling us how you integrate this. If you don't integrate your own facts into your life, you make yourself crazy, because the facts are the facts, and you can't deny them. You give yourself over to a madness, and that is that when you put madmen in charge of your government, they become inherently destructive, because they realize they have to cover up for all the mistakes they are making when they don't know what they're doing. This is a human process that goes on. Napoleon had this problem. Of course, as I mentioned a number of times, the communists had this problem. We and most politicians trying to hide where they get their bribes from have this problem.
Yeah.
This is just part of reality. We have to be very alert.
And we have to stop allowing ourselves to be overrun by emotion and not thinking. And this is what drives me crazy. I had one woman, bless her heart, write me last week and claim that, or 2 weeks ago when the whole Fauci thing broke, when he invoked the Fifth Amendment 111 times, that it wasn't actually his computer, it was planted, and that it was all forged. And I asked her, I said, did you not hear his statement? The facts are that he said, prior to invoking the Fifth Amendment 111 times, he admitted it was his unredacted computer, his diary. He said it. And this woman still said, well, it could still be forged. So that's a denial of reality. And that's, to me, very, very frustrating, Father.
No, again, this is exactly why people live in a world in which they have such a strong desire for, well, it could be. And this happened. I remember once in a jury.
Father, we're out of time. We got to pick this up next week. I'm sure the conversation will continue, and then we'll also get your thoughts. Even next week, it'll still be timely. Our beautiful anniversary, 45 years coming up. We'll be talking to Peter Gagnon about that tomorrow as well. Thank you, Father. Good to have you back in the States. We'll be right back. .38 minutes past the hour. EWTN, Global Catholic Radio, coast to coast and around the world. Thanks for tuning in wherever you are. Blessed to have Penny Nance, head of the wonderful organization Concerned Women for America. I couldn't wait to talk to you today because I went to Town Sister with that horrible situation in Massachusetts where the governor signed that diabolical measure, abortion until birth, no restrictions. And, it doesn't even have to be done in a hospital. You can do it elsewhere as long as it's approved by an abortionist. The thing that got me, I mean, we have now, 12 states that have no restrictions and go all the way up to birth in terms...
10 plus the District of Columbia, so 11 basically.
11. Okay, that's horrific enough. But to see those people, mostly women, behind the governor, and the governor, of course, herself, clapping and cheering and taking photos... It just, I don't even know how to respond to that. What did you think when you saw that?
It seemed, I think you said diabolical. I said maniacal. Like the smiling faces, the disconnect, the hardened hearts of those women that are applauding and listen, I know this is morning radio, but Teresa, but we can't talk about it without talking about it.
Exactly. No.
What I know about a late-term abortion is it's dismemberment. It is the sickest thing you can possibly think of. And of course, I oppose abortion at any point. But this is so painful and so cruel. I can't imagine as a woman being okay with this kind of violence in the womb. And who are those women that were just so joyful about this kind of evil? It was very difficult to understand.
And what's also very frustrating, and I know you deal with this all the time in terms of your outreach and your continuing efforts to educate, is, of course, the left has been painting abortion as something that's rare, and now we have late-term abortion, but it's needed for women's health.
Yeah, merciful.
There's so
right?
many lies.
Celebrities calling it merciful.
Right, so many lies, and it has to stop, and we have to call it out, and we have to continue to speak up for every life from womb to tomb. But so many people believe that late-term abortions are rare, and they're not. I mean, the Charlotte Lozier Institute, even the Guttmacher Institute has admitted this. Yeah. And so let's talk about that reality, because so many people try to convince themselves or push it aside and say, oh, it happens rarely, so I don't have to worry about that.
Well, and I would say, what does it matter? Like,
right.
even
How
one
often
is
it happens,
too
right.
many.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the most majority are in the first or second trimester, but that doesn't mean that it does happen. And, they try to sort of, they try to sort of explain it by saying, well, it's a younger woman who was in denial, whatever. Like, okay, if she waited another month, we could bless a family with adoption. I've often thought, Teresa, if I had 10 minutes with Elon Musk, I'd ask him for $1 billion in order to change the attitudes in our country on adoption and foster care. Mm-hmm. It's now the thing, I think, for young women. They're more willing to admit an abortion than an adoption. And that is so wrong-headed. It is the opposite of heroic. And so what we've come down to is just really the logical end of the argument that if it's my body, my choice, it's my body and my choice at any point, any reason, any number, and really should be paid for by the taxpayer. Mm-hmm. And that has been the position really all along of Planned Parenthood and the abortion left. They've couched it earlier in a little bit more conservative language, but the overturn of Roe sort of took the mask off. And, we are working very hard to, now that we're allowed to change the law in the states, we're doing that. And also we're working with the Department of Justice to really change the fact that states are getting the runaround with chemical abortion coming in. And as you said, this doesn't even have to be done in a doctor's office. I mean, the fact that you can do these late-term abortions. The next step is, and I believe this is infanticide, but what is the difference between the day before birth and the day after birth or during birth? What is the difference, really, logically? Yeah. Nothing.
It is actually pathetic that this governor thought that she had to go ahead, and she calls herself a Catholic, and I know the bishops have...
I was wondering about that. I believe she is a Catholic. There's pictures of her with the Pope. I mean... Yeah,
don't even get me started on that. I don't have enough time to have her hide behind the Catholic title. It's extremely frustrating and evil in terms of what's happening here. Mm-hmm. But we have got to continue to educate so many people. I read a whole chapter in my book, which came out years ago, Extreme Makeover, the Abortion Distortion, about what the media have done. And I bought it I was saying this yesterday. I did an op-ed on this in my second hour. I bought it hook, line, and sinker. I didn't want to hear it, didn't want to think about it. And then when I started to do the research, I realized how I had been duped by my own industry that lied and lied and lied. And so many people are still being duped. So much else going on. Okay, now let's move toward the primary elections. And we see these candidates that are so far left, Penny. And we in Michigan, my home state of Michigan, we're really concerned about a particular man running for Senate. What are your thoughts on this? Where is this going, do you think?
Well, in a primary election, a base election is what wins, right? And it tells you how far left the base has swung for Democrats, particularly like in the Midwest, Michigan. Are you joking? And I think you're talking about Asiad.
I said, yeah, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sorry, forgive me in a normal day, I can say his name. I'm having morning, I don't know. But all that to say, Asiad, he's a socialist. He'll call himself a Democrat socialist, but he is a socialist. I mean, his very priorities would completely bankrupt the country, completely bankrupt Michigan, but he's not alone. I mean, people really agree with him on many of these issues. And, you know, he is as far left as you can go on any of these social issues. I'm sure was applauding alongside Massachusetts on their abortion to birth policy. He's anti-Israel. He's anti-Semitic. I mean, it's the whole thing. But, you know, at Concern Women for America, we started to wonder, because there is a real deep bench of voters that often are silent. And it's the low propensity, conservative, Catholic, Christian woman voter. And we wanted to know, what is she thinking about? And so we commissioned a poll by Zogby. It was a large poll. And we wanted to give a roadmap for conservatives to talk about this issue in a way that would bring out these women who are comfortable in their pew. They often, you know, as you were saying, don't want to think about it, don't want to know, but deep down know that there are threats to their families. And they are, you know, seeing the news. They're seeing what's happening. They know who Riley Gaines is. They know what's happening in their daughter's sports teams and their, you know, their locker rooms. They are concerned about kitchen table issues. And so we wanted to see what they said. What are they thinking of? And so if I could, Teresa, I just want to give you just a little bit
That'd
of
be great, because that was my
have,
next question about the whole transgender ideology thing.
Yeah,
so please go ahead.
We have all of this on our website if people want to really see the whole poll, but I'll just kind of hit the 80-20 issues. And, you know, to me, this is the roadmap, guys and ladies. When you're running, this is what you need to be talking about. Number one, when we asked a whole range of topics, the number one issue for everyone, including women, was grocery prices, and that's no surprise. The second thing was crime. Not a surprise. Women always, I think, within the top five, it's usually crime. It ranks up there. This surprising to me were two other issues that came up in the 80-20 block. One was women strongly believed, and we're talking about 79.9% of women, and men too, but at a little bit lower number, believe that companies that pay for abortion for their employees, like in their health care or travel, that they should also have to pay at least or help with child care. I thought that was so fascinating.
Yeah.
Like, you've got these companies that it costs them nothing. They're happy to pay for an abortion because they don't want their women having to miss work. But they have no interest in helping out in child care, which, as we know, is very expensive. And
okay, how sexist is that, though? How sexist is that? Think about it.
Very sexist. And it's very elitist, right? Like, you know, if you're at the top, you can afford a nanny. But if you're a working, you know, hourly worker, a biggest part of your paycheck probably is going for child care, and you need quality child care. But you want to pick it. You don't want the government doing it for you. So these big-hearted, quote-unquote, big-hearted companies need to help with that.
They don't want to.
And then the other one, the other 80-20 was women said that government policies should make it easier for women to afford to stay home. And this, of course, also impacts infertility rates. So I was thinking about Caroline Leavitt yesterday and her announcement. I mean, this is right on point. And, you know, a lot of women, again, she's, you know, a well-paid woman and you know, of a certain stature. Women who are not middle-class women, their paychecks, their tax rates, other issues impact whether or not they can work part-time, whether they can take a couple of years off. And when you ask women, and this has been the case throughout my career, they say they'd like to work less, they'd like to spend more time with their children. They want to pick their own child care, whether it's family care or whether, you know, again, they're home more until the kids go to school. And so we're going to put together, I think, a list of policies. This will be coming up in the next couple of weeks of suggestions of government policies that can really help women meet that goal. And then you asked about the issue of women's sports, and that was a 70-30 issue. Women were very deeply concerned, and men, about women's sports and about their daughters sharing a locker room. That is a wedge issue that cuts across Democrats, Republicans, Independents. It's an issue that's not going away, and the left wants to ignore it. And, you know, you have, again, you know, these leftist Democrat Socialists of America who want to trans all the kids. You have Tellerico in Texas who's very pro-trans, but people do not want their daughters to have to share a sports team. They don't want their money paying for, or Medicaid. The president came out just a day or so ago saying no more Medicaid dollars paying for transitioning surgery.
Yep, thanks be to God. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, really, the president's right on point in what he's saying on this, and the lower ballot candidates need to really take up the mantra and be talking about what they believe on this salient issue. And then another 70-30 issue, and I think this one may surprise you, but we started noticing people talking about marijuana. And, we were sort of on this train in the country where there was more legalization, more recreational use, but people are sick of it. And we noticed a study by the College of Surgeons in the U.S. that said a large proportion, and I'm forgetting the number, I think it was something like 60% of traffic fatalities.
I saw that.
The driver had THC in their system.
Yep.
And we've all seen it. We've all passed by the car in which the smell was just made us gag of the pot wafting out, seen a driver flick a joint out the window. So we asked a question. We asked it in the way that we thought would get a much lower response. We asked if people believe that the marijuana industry should be forced, and you never say the word forced in a survey because people don't like that word. They don't want to force people to do anything. But we said it. Force the marijuana industry to produce a roadside test similar to the alcohol breathalyzer. There is no roadside test now for pot. You have to take someone in. If there's a fatality, you got to take them in, get a blood test. If you just pull somebody over and smell pot on them, it's not enough to arrest them. And so,
Penny, we're out of time, unfortunately. So many issues, important ones at the top of the list. We need to have you back on, especially in the next couple of weeks when you come out with those policies. Please, if we can reschedule you, we'll contact your people. Very important conversation with Penny Nance with Concerned Women for America. Check out their great website, concernedwomen.org, for these stories and much more. We'll be right back. Boy, this hour went by quickly. Thanks to both of our wonderful guests, Penny Nance from the Concerned Women for America organization, and our very own Father Mitch Pacwa, who was supposed to be also talking about the anniversary. We're celebrating 45 years on the 15th in Ferragusto, Feast of the Assumption. But we will chat with Raymond Arroyo tomorrow. Raymundo, as I call him, is going to be joining us at 15 minutes past the hour. And to talk about the network, Peter Gagnon is going to be busy with various events associated with the anniversary, of course. So Raymond is going to come on and give us his take on 45 years of the network. But tonight, in the meantime, speaking of Raymond Arroyo, his wonderful program, The World Over, will feature Archbishop Paul Coakley of Oklahoma City and the USCCB president. He serves in that capacity as well, Archbishop Coakley, discussing a new film that he's producing, American Martyr, the Stanley Rother story. That is very, very cool. Also, his thoughts on the new Massachusetts pro-abortion law and immigration enforcement in the U.S. And the one, the only, Father Tad Baholchek. Of course, we just had him on yesterday, senior ethicist at the National Catholic Bioethics Center, bringing the viewers this evening up to date on all the latest pro-life and anti-life news this week, including vaccinations, assisted suicide, and also, as we've been mentioning, that horrific law in abortion. So in Massachusetts regarding abortion. So a lot of really important segments this evening. 8 o'clock Eastern, The World Over with Raymond Arroyo. Coming up in hour number 2 of Catholic Connection, we are going to talk about a teacher in Houston who is so upset about the poor literacy skills that he did a very sincere video on Instagram, and now he's being attacked. And then we'll also talk with that lawsuit and Bishop Paprocki regarding forcing doctors to submit to new assisted suicide regulations.
Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo.
Appreciate you listening here on EWTN Radio Extra to Catholic Connection, an EWTN production, as you just heard. And we are going to pick up on a story that we discussed in the news, and that is the one concerning a major lawsuit trying to block Illinois, a law there that is pushing suicide on patients and doctors. And so we will have McHale, the senior counsel with the wonderful Thomas More Society, and he'll discuss. As we mentioned, there is also a major story on this on EWTNnews.com. And we have two segments on this because it's a super crucial issue. Obviously, it's pro-life issue. We are pro-life as a Catholic Church from womb to tomb. And it's another example of how many of these laws, many of these stories are, they may make some news in the Catholic world and other Christian outlets, but for the most part, they are either celebrated or misconstrued, or they offer very confusing information so you don't get the actual story of what's happening, especially in terms of life, death, and our religious freedom. That's why I'm so grateful to the amazing Bishop Poprocki, who's also a canon lawyer, by the way, who has decided to join this lawsuit, and we'll talk with Michael about that. Now, in 2 cents, something else that's very frustrating, actually shocking and sad. There's a story out there, and my friend Marcy, who works with me at Teresa Tomeo Communications in Tees, Italy, is always sending me interesting articles. And there is a video online of a teacher in Houston, and we have the audio from it. Richard's got that ready to roll. We'll talk about that in 2 cents. And he starts crying, and he actually broke down in class. School just started in his area, and he's working with the students, and these are seniors, high school seniors. He's working with them on a reading project and practically did the assignment for them, and they still couldn't get through it. And he's having one of those moments, an aha moment, where he realizes how poorly educated these kids are. And he's very concerned as an African-American man, obviously, because many of his students are minorities, either Hispanic or African-American. And he says, what are we doing to these kids? We're sending them into the world without basic literacy skills, and how that's going to hold them back. And in the video, he says, I really hesitated to do this, but we've got to get this message out there. And now what happens, of course, typical of the left? Deflect and project. Oh, he's not even qualified to make that statement. What the heck do his qualifications have to do with anything? First of all, you hired him. If he wasn't qualified, that's a reflection on you. And secondly, that is the typical response when someone wants to ignore a problem that they've helped grow and become insidious. Now, this article in the New York Post is very, very good because it shows the numbers in terms of the stats and the literacy issues. And so we'll talk about that. And also, what does the church say about the importance of education? That's why we have the Cardinal Newman Society on with us every single week. So, very interesting discussion. We'll share that during 2 cents. Let's take a look at the forecast for you because it's going to be rough for certain parts of the country. The Midwest is yet preparing for another round of severe weather. Forecasters are warning of severe storms today, not just today, but tonight. And this is from eastern Nebraska to northern Kentucky. Those in the path of the storm, they're saying, can expect wind gusts of up to 60 miles per hour, as well as isolated tornadoes and flash flooding from heavy rain. It is a Thursday morning. It's August 13th. We are glad that you're listening to hour number 2 of EWTN's Radio Extra. Right now, let's check the news at 4 minutes past the hour on a Thursday morning. Rescue efforts in western Colombia continue today. The death toll from the catastrophic 7.4 magnitude earthquake taking place on Monday has now risen to 265, with nearly 500 people still missing and thousands others who were hurt. International search teams are on the ground using cranes and heavy equipment to continue to dig through flattened buildings in the hardest hit cities. And local officials say they are still detecting signs of life beneath the rubble and are desperately racing against the clock to save them. Meanwhile, Claudia Torres with Vatican News tells us the Holy Father sending a check to the diocese in Colombia struck by the deadly 7.4 magnitude earthquake. He sent that. Of course, that happened on Monday, and he sent that this week.
Pope Leo XIV has expressed his solidarity with the people of Colombia devastated by the powerful 7.4 magnitude earthquake that struck the western part of the country. He conveyed his closeness during Wednesday's general audience held on August 12, when he renewed his condolences and prayers for the victims. But it has also taken concrete form through an initial emergency financial contribution sent by the Pope through the Dicastery for the Service of Charity. The funds are intended for dioceses affected by the earthquake and follow from discussions between the prefect, Archbishop Luis Marín de San Martín, the Apostolic Nunciature in Colombia, and the local bishops' conference. As he did for Venezuela, which was also struck by a powerful earthquake in June, the Pope immediately sent an initial financial contribution to Colombia as a concrete sign of solidarity. The sum of $100,000 was sent directly to the National Secretariat for Social Pastoral Care, Caritas Colombia of the Bishops' Conference, which serves as a centralized coordination center for the collection and distribution of aid. The organization will ensure that the assistance reaches the dioceses affected by the earthquake. The amount was agreed upon with the recipients and represents a first contribution intended to address the most immediate needs. Further concrete assistance will follow as needs are identified and promptly communicated to the dicastery. Indeed, dialogue begun in the first hours after the disaster continues unabated between the Apostolic Almoner, Archbishop Luis Marín de San Martín, and the president of the Colombian Bishops' Conference, Cardinal Francisco Javier Munera Correa, who briefed the almoner on the situation in the affected areas. Meanwhile, a report is being prepared to assess the most urgent needs, again at the initiative of the Dicastery for the Service of Charity. This outreach, the Apostolic Almoner explained, demonstrates the Church as a family of God, a Church attentive to suffering and need, responding with fraternity and efficiency. I'm Claudia Torres.
Attorneys for the man accused of killing conservative commentator Charlie Kirk want the death penalty taken off the table. In a newly filed motion, they're asking the judge to strike the aggravating factor that makes Tyler Robinson eligible for capital punishment. The defense arguing the state has failed to prove probable cause that Robinson knowingly created a great risk of death to another other than Charlie Kirk. They go on to say that Robinson had only one target and that the bullet fired at Kirk from a rooftop during a Turning Point USA event at Utah Valley University last year did not put anyone else in danger. And we'll talk about this with our friends at the Thomas More Society coming up a little later on in the program. The Bishop of Springfield, Illinois, is joining a Lutheran nursing home and a group of doctors to sue the state over its assisted suicide law, with the coalition arguing the state's suicide regime abandons nearly 2 millennia of medical practice while requiring objectors to take part in it. As EWTNnews.com explains, a suit brought in U.S. District Court by Bishop Thomas Paprocki, the Lutheran Care Center, and 4 Illinois-based doctors, arguing the Illinois so-called end-of-life options law requires doctors to take part in helping patients kill themselves, even if they have a conscientious objection to that. Healthcare entities, meanwhile, must promote the benefits of the suicide law to patients, even if they object to doing so. And those providers are also required, the suit says, to allow on-site practitioners to facilitate patient access to euthanasia. The lawsuit arguing both the doctors and the Lutheran nursing facility cannot in good conscience comply. The suit also says Paprocki is obligated to uphold the bishop's Catholic Health Service that forbid, and their directives that forbid Catholic health facilities from taking part in assisted suicide. Social media going on trial, jury selection getting underway yesterday in California in a big trial against Meta. This after a U.S. appeals court declined to dismiss thousands of online safety lawsuits against major social media companies. The lawsuit alleging platforms owned by companies such as Meta and TikTok encourage addictive behavior, fail to properly verify users' ages, and do not do enough to protect users from harmful content. And as we reported in the weather, Mark Mayfield tells us the Midwest preparing for yet another round of severe weather.
Forecasters are warning of severe thunderstorm activity today and tonight from eastern Nebraska to northern Kentucky, with the highest risk in parts of Iowa, Missouri, Indiana, and central Illinois. Those in the path of the storm can expect wind gusts of up to 60 miles per hour, as well as isolated tornadoes and flash flooding from heavy rain. Rising rivers are possible across the region and washed-out roads. Forecasters warn heavy rain in the area could persist for hours at a time. I'm Mark Mayfield.
Thousands being evacuated. Hundreds of homes are being threatened as wildfires continue to rage across the western part of the country. In northern Nevada, for example, the sheriff of Washoe County says over 5,000 people have now been displaced by 2 different fires that have destroyed over 100,000 acres, with only 3% containment at last check. In Oregon, the big grass fire burning over 570,000 acres, and is now the largest in state history. California crews will try again to fight the timber fire near Big Sur today, this after falling back yesterday because of lightning. The one near Highway 1 is only about 5% contained. Liz Warner tells us 11 New Yorkers are arrested and charged by the Department of Justice over a multi-state and multi-million-dollar green card marriage scam.
While the practice itself isn't exactly new, the scale here is significant.
This is one of the largest marriage fraud prosecutions in United States history.
Attorney General Todd Blanche said since 2016, 11 suspects from New York City, Ossining, and Peekskill arranged more than 1,000 sham unions. Primarily Chinese nationals were paired up with U.S. citizens who were paid $100,000 to become bogus spouses. They got green cards soon after the couples tied the knot. Wedding venues and sham banquets were arranged, complete with photographers and social media posts to make everything appear legitimate. In New York, I'm Liz Warner.
And two of President Trump's cabinet secretaries blasting the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, this after a visit to the West Coast city. Department of Housing and Urban Development Secretary Scott Turner and Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. are accusing the authority of major mismanagement and corruption.
I think it's been operated like a racket. County-run facilities are just a disaster. And then, there's so much fraud in all of them.
They're also vowing to withhold dollars from the organization if there's still no accountability. And Whole Foods is recalling dozens of items now containing jalapenos, and the recall affects 12 states, including its only Iowa location.
Though no cases of salmonella linked to jalapenos have been reported in Iowa, the company is recalling salsas, guacamoles, and some condiments containing jalapenos sold at the West Des Moines store. No known illnesses have been reported in connection to the Whole Foods products. I'm Elaine Lee Irvin.
This recall, by the way, comes days after Taylor Farms announced it would be recalling prepackaged products with jalapenos sold at grocery stores in 26 states. That recall, however, did not include the state of Iowa. It's almost 13 minutes past the hour, and back to school time is exciting, but it can also cause anxiety and stress for your child. Dr. McHale Rosenman is a child psychologist at the University of Denver, says it's very common, and the anxiety does affect 3 out of 10 children.
We notice the symptoms starting most frequently between about ages 7 and 16.
She says it's often about switching schools, getting new teachers, classmates, or simply moving up a grade, and it's usually nothing to worry about. As she puts it, what it means is they are not robots and they have emotions, and that's a good thing. And she tells moms and dads to speak, talk it through with the kids after and offer them reassurance overcoming difficult experiences in their own lives. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're looking for something fun to do, if you're in the Midwest and you're heading to Michigan anytime soon, the big Woodward Dream Cruise is taking place in 9 Detroit suburbs. Over 1 million people take part, and they're from all over the country and all over the state of Michigan. You can also watch it online. It's really cool. They have classic cars. It takes place all day. And it's a really fun Americana thing. More Catholic Connection coming your way. Welcome back, Catholic Connection, on a busy Thursday morning. It is August 13th, 2026. Of course, this weekend is the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Big celebration for EWTN as we mark 45 years, and we'll talk more about that on a Friday morning tomorrow with our very own Raymond Arroyo, and the importance of having Catholic media available to so many, because we are now the largest religious media organization in the world, which is just phenomenal. All started by the amazing woman you just heard, our very own foundress, Mother Angelica. And she would certainly, I'm sure, have a lot to say about this particular story. And it is just so sad. Here is a teacher who really cares about his students, and he was so upset about the situation that he found in his class as the school opened that he broke down. And then he decided to do an Instagram video raising the question, what in the world is going on here? We need to address it. So my friend Marcy, who works with me at both Teresa Tamio Communications and Tease Italy, always sending me great articles. And it helps because I try to keep up on everything, but there's so much going on. Sometimes it's just not physically possible. So I appreciate the stories. So this is on the New York Post website. And here's a headline if you'd like to look it up. Texas teacher breaks down in tears during class after his senior students struggled to read and write. Senior high school. Okay, seniors in high school. A Texas high school teacher was reduced to tears and broke down in front of his class when he realized the seniors he was teaching could not complete a simple writing exercise. Darius Williams is a teacher for Houston Independent School District. Wheatley High School said he couldn't get through the first class of the second day of school before his students' poor literacy skills were too much for him. Now we're going to play the audio that he shares, but I want to read a little bit more. Williams is a new education system career and technical education staffer, said he gave his class full of seniors 2 paragraphs to read and asked them to complete another sentence he had practically filled out for them, but he was left stunned when they couldn't even finish the task. And he was helping them with the task. So we have the audio from this short but very powerful video that he posted online on Instagram. Richard's going to play that for us now. Take a listen.
So I am on my lunch break. It is, 11:30 or something like that. And I just finished a 3-hour class. We have what's called block, and block is where first and second periods are combined for subjects that need it. And so I literally broke down in the middle of class because I'm teaching seniors. These kids are leaving high school and going to college, hopefully, after they finish. We had 2 paragraphs to read, 1 sentence complete to write. I gave them the sentence stems. I basically completed the sentence for them in the model. These are 17 and 18-year-old kids, and they couldn't fill in 4 words. 4 words. I gave them the scenario. We annotated together. I gave them the answers before we even had the problem. And they couldn't do it. I don't know. I simply don't know where the problem is. This is only day 2. And I have seniors who simply cannot read and seniors who cannot write. They cannot write. They can reason. They have the ability to defend their reasoning if it's talking to their homeboy, but applying that to a written text, 2 paragraphs, and they couldn't do it. Our young black men, our young brown men, our young black girls, and our young brown girls oh, God.
So before he posted the video, he says he thought long and hard about it. And then his statement with the video that you just heard, the audio from the video, he says, I thought long and hard about posting this, but we have got to do something. Something is broken somewhere. It has to be. To see this level of engagement in students who simply don't have literacy skills is completely disheartening. We all know we need to prepare young people better. So far, he has almost 80,000 likes and almost 13,000 comments. And that was from this morning, so I'm sure it's even gone much higher than that. What's very interesting and typical is they shoot the messenger. Here's a man making some very valid points. He's in the classroom. He's an African American himself. He understands the challenges that these minority students could be facing. And he's saying we're sending these young people out, minority students. They're not even equipped with the basics needed to even get, let's say, a small part-time job if they can't read well, if they can't write. Basic skills. After 12 years in a public school system. And the New York Post goes on to cite a lot of the problems, and he's attacked now. He's the problem. This is what these other teachers are saying. Well, now he is forced to defend himself, showing his certifications and what he's done so far, and yet his qualifications and certifications never came up before until he calls out what's going on. Talk about the continued effort to deflect and project. Not our problem, it's his problem. Shooting the messenger. The New York Post talks about Williams breaking down in the middle of the class days after it was revealed. Talk about timely. That a majority of New York City students between 3rd and 5th grades failed their English language arts tests last school year. Results released this week by the State Education Department finding nearly 60% of 3rd graders and 52% of 4th graders and 57% of 5th graders all received failing marks on their tests in the 2025-2026 academic calendar. Just 48% of students in the testing grades 4 through 8 rated proficient, a significant 5% plunge in the previous year, according to the Department of Education. Now, the Catholic Church teaches us that, of course, the primary responsibility for education is with the parents. Paragraph 2221, education is a primary duty of parents who are called to teach their children to love God and neighbor, cultivating both moral and intellectual virtues. So the church says that parents have to work with the schools. But in the case, I would say, of this situation, this man is very concerned because I'm sure many of these students are faced with a situation where perhaps their parents can't afford to send them to a private school. They have to work during the day. And that is a situation for a lot of families. Something is broken somewhere. This man is doing his job in letting this be known, and he's the one getting attacked for it. Well, God bless him for speaking up and being so concerned. And shame on those blaming him. It's his fault, not ours. The typical deflection and projection never seems to end, does it? What a shame. We'll be right back. Minutes past the hour. We so appreciate the great work of our friends at the Thomas More Society, and we were just discussing with my guest from the Thomas More Society, Michael McHale. Thank God for strong bishops such as Bishop Thomas Paprocki. He is amazing, and he's joining this lawsuit. Let me read you the 2 lead paragraphs from the story on EWTNnews.com today, which you can check out for yourself. It's written by Daniel Payne. The Bishop of Springfield, Illinois, joining a Lutheran nursing home and a group of doctors to sue the state over its assisted suicide law, with the coalition arguing the state's suicide regime, which it really is, abandons nearly 2 millennia of medical practice while requiring objectors to take part in it. The suit brought in U.S. District Court by Bishop Thomas Paprocki, the Lutheran Care Center, and 4 Illinois-based doctors, arguing that the Illinois End-of-Life Options Law, don't you love that title, requiring doctors to take part in helping patients kill themselves, even if they conscientiously object to doing so. Oh, but wait, there's more. It also must promote, the healthcare entities must also promote the suicide law to patients, even if they object doing so. And they're also required to allow on-site practitioners to facilitate patient access to be able to kill themselves. Okay, so, Michael, I don't even know where to begin. What say you? I know this was just filed, right, earlier this week.
Just filed on Tuesday. Thanks so much for having me, Teresa. And, yeah, it's a challenge, a First Amendment and constitutional challenge to Illinois' radical new assisted suicide law that really goes beyond every other state that has sadly passed a similar law. It requires, like you said, conscientiously objecting doctors and healthcare facilities to still promote this so-called option to patients. The law is set up to be a supposed option for, quote, terminally ill patients, which are people who have been diagnosed, often incorrectly, with only 6 months left to live. Mm-hmm. And there are also ways to manipulate that in other ways. And even Catholic doctors, while the law says no doctor has to, quote, participate, non-participants still have to promote the so-called, quote, benefits of assisted suicide to their patients and refer, if requested, refer them specifically to a healthcare professional who will do this. And this blatantly violates Catholic teaching, one, and we're representing a Lutheran nursing home as well, and they have a clear recognition of the immorality of assisted suicide and any participation in it. So it violates sincere religious beliefs and real clear theology. It also, compels speech. It compels speech, and our lead claim is this is a free speech violation. You can't force doctors and nursing homes and healthcare facilities to promote the state's view of assisted suicide. This is clear, and we're confident that we're going to prevail in court eventually.
When did this this so-called end-of-life options law, Michael, come about?
Yes, it goes into effect on September 12th, and so we're seeking a preliminary injunction.
Yeah, it's pretty new, from what I understand. Yeah,
exactly.
But this is insane. It's so macabre when you think about it. Just the idea of, okay, we have to have these killers, these people who do these things on site at these health facilities.
Exactly. It says, well, healthcare facilities, you don't have to do it if you object, but you have to allow, and you can't take any employment action against healthcare providers on your campus, on your premises, from promoting it. It says your employees can counsel patients how to access resources to get assisted suicide. Oh, and get this, healthcare facilities that object are also prohibited from engaging in, quote, deploying misinformation to obstruct access.
Oh, see, there it is. We're the ones who have the misinformation issue, not them.
And get this, only if you're obstructing access, not to facilitate. So this just reveals the state's blatant viewpoint targeting of, frankly, religious healthcare providers who object to this. They want to enforce one view and censor all opposing views to try to manipulate the truth here.
So this is happening in other places as well. Canada has gone off the deep end. They're doing all kinds of crazy things. And, of course, they always talk about it. Oh, it's just an option for people. And yet you have stories of one woman being just diagnosed with breast cancer. Before they even talk about her care in terms of chemo, they say we will have the option to kill yourself. I mean, seriously, how many women are successfully cancer-free now and or are living in some state, but they're enjoying their lives? This is so evil.
Exactly, and that's exactly what our doctors have told us. We're representing 4 physicians, including 2 oncologists, and in putting together this lawsuit, they've explained that, look, oftentimes people get serious, even terminal diagnoses, and the answer is not assisted suicide. We work with them to find, as physicians, find a healing treatment if possible, and to accompany them. You don't promote
death,
killing themselves. And oftentimes there are other answers, and that's part of being a physician. This is the exact opposite, obviously.
Talking with Michael McHale from the Thomas More Society about the lawsuit regarding the state of Illinois and their attempt, the Thomas More Society, on behalf of their clients, including Bishop Paprocki, to block the Illinois law that is pushing suicide on patients. Not only that, but they want these doctors to promote it. See, this is where we've gone. It continues to go down this slippery slope. For example, you see with this whole craziness with gender ideology, where men identifying as women, women identifying as men. When it first started, it was like, well, you don't have to agree with it, but just let them do their thing. Now, if we don't embrace it, if we don't cheer it, if we don't support it in every which way, then we are the ones who are targeted.
Exactly. In the state, time and again, we see this across the country, tries to censor speech of people who promote the opposite ideas. And specifically with what you're talking about, the Supreme Court's decision earlier this year in Childs versus Salazar, dealt with exactly this issue. The state of Colorado trying to censor counselors from helping minors who want to work through their sexual orientation, gender identity issues. Well, that case was key, and it's key for our Illinois case as well, because the Supreme Court clarified more than it ever had before that even healthcare professionals have free speech rights to the same extent as every other free person. And Colorado blatantly violated that counselor speech right. Well, the same is true here. We're talking about speech of our plaintiffs, whether they have to promote the state's message that assisted suicide has benefits. That's crazy. And then tell people, provide them written information about other doctors who tragically will help these patients commit suicide. This is compelled speech. So the Supreme Court's decision in Childs this past year in the sexual orientation, gender identity context, we think should win the day in this case in Illinois eventually.
Do you think this is going to have to make its way to the Supreme Court to really put a stop to this for your clients, Michael?
I think there is a very good possibility, especially on the requirement that we have to refer these patients to people who help kill themselves. That's a requirement the courts seem to struggle with. Interestingly, this case is coming on the heels of another federal court challenge in Illinois to the Illinois Conscience Act, Healthcare Right of Conscience Act specifically, which about 10 years ago the legislature amended to similarly require conscientiously objecting doctors to promote the benefits of services they disagree with and refer for them. Well, that's pending at the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals right now in Chicago. The district judge actually put a permanent injunction on the benefits discussion mandate, but he did not enjoin the referral requirement. I have to tell you, I listened to the oral argument.
Hold on, let's pick this up on the other side of the break. Sorry, I was so engrossed in the conversation, I forgot that the music would soon be playing. Continuing our conversation with Michael McHale, Senior Counsel with the Thomas More Society. We'll be right back. Michael McHale is with us, Senior Counsel with the Thomas More Society, talking about this major story, and we're covering it in all of our entities, including EWTNnews.com and this program as well. You may have seen the story on our website. The Bishop of Springfield, Illinois, joining a Lutheran nursing home and a group of doctors suing the state over its assisted suicide law, with the coalition arguing the state's suicide regime abandons nearly 2 millennia of medical practice while requiring objectors to take part in it. Michael, sorry we were interrupted by the music. Continue what you were saying before the break regarding the legal process that's going on.
Well, Illinois already has a referral requirement in its Healthcare Right of Conscience Act, and that is pending at the Seventh Circuit right now, Court of Appeals. And I expect, unfortunately, based on the oral argument earlier this year, that the court's going to rule against us on that. And we're counsel along with Wine Suspending Freedom. And likely will appeal to the Supreme Court after that decision. And that could have a lot of bearing on our Illinois case. But a big key in this new, our end-of-life Illinois case, our plaintiffs also have clear free exercise claims. This is a blatant violation of religious liberty. The Catholic Ethical and Religious Healthcare Directives promulgated by the USCCB, they're so clear that you cannot refer even for assisted suicide. So there's a real clear conflict with religious exercise here. And Bishop Pacwa, he is responsible for ensuring Catholic hospitals in his diocese follow those ERDs. Well, this new Illinois assisted suicide law directly interferes with Bishop Pacwa's internal church governance. So there's another free exercise violation. And so possibly, if we lose the referral requirement in that separate case, these free exercise claims would still be a backstop. But I do expect, maybe both cases will have to go to the Supreme Court and get more clarity there that, states cannot compel Catholic and religious providers to promote immoral messages, basically.
So you might get a temporary injunction, a stay to hold them off for a while, but eventually this is going to make its way all the way through the top of the court system, right?
I think so. We are going to seek a preliminary injunction. Now, there's a similar lawsuit going on in New York. New York passed a similar assisted suicide law with a similar referral requirement, and there the states agreed to a temporary injunction pending just the briefing on that motion. And that could go away quickly. Here, we're on the heels of a different case which raises similar issues. So we think there should be temporary relief pending the outcome of that separate case. But we don't know. I do think this is going to probably have to go all the way to the Supreme Court, and we're going to need more clarity that even beyond the counseling context, like we saw in Childs, that you cannot force doctors to promote and refer for assisted suicide. This just seems so clear.
Now, sometimes when people have common sense, and I realize that, common sense is not so common anymore, but when they see a big case as the one you discussed in Colorado with that counselor, very victorious in her case, some people will pull out of a lawsuit, they'll drop it, they won't, revisit it because it is going to be obviously, not a very good outcome. They have to know. They're not stupid. They're aware of these cases, but they don't quit, do they?
No, they don't quit. Childs, the one difference could be Childs came out in March of this year, and Governor Pritzker actually signed this law back in December 2025. He might not have expected this, but it doesn't go into effect until next month, like we said. But they don't seem to ever get the message. We also sued Illinois successfully a few years ago. They tried to prevent pregnancy centers from engaging in, quote, misinformation. And thankfully, a district judge enjoined it. So we think this is more of the same. They don't quit. One point I wanted to make, the referral thing seems to hang up. Judges seem to get hung up on that. Our doctors have such a beautiful understanding, and they're talking about it. This is not about abandoning patients. Assisted suicide is what abandons patients.
Is abandoning patients, right?
Is the opposite of accompanying them. That is abandonment. So by not referring, we're not abandoning, we're accompanying patients.
But see, this is the whole idea. This is what the left, I have to say, is brilliant at, the messaging. Because even the name of this law, end-of-life options. This sounds so, here's an option. You can end your own life. This whole idea of compassion and serving the person, just like with abortion, the crazy diabolical situation in Massachusetts, and I keep talking about this story and the cheering behind her when the governor signed that abortion all the way through birth bill, which is insanity, clapping and cheering. It's the name of women's reproductive health, and women have to have all the options. They have made it sound like such a good that people need, and they have sold us a bill of goods, and so many of us have bought it hook, line, and sinker. And they continue now at the other end of the spectrum when someone is either elderly or close to death by natural causes, or someone who has possibly an illness. And nowadays, it's not even that. If you just feel like killing yourself, you can kill yourself. I mean, this is the thing. Why do we have suicide hotlines? This is what's so crazy. Okay, if you are so for all of this, then end all the suicide hotlines. Don't work with people who are thinking about killing themselves. What does it matter if you're terminal? What does it matter if you're aged? What does it matter if you just want to have that choice to have an option for your life?
Exactly. It's so arbitrary. That's another reason it violates free exercise. Illinois actually prohibits inducing someone to commit suicide right now. Now there's a big exception for terminally ill patients. How convenient. The most vulnerable are now excluded from protections for people with suicidal ideation. And our doctors, absolutely, they will not prevent suicide as an option, quote unquote, for end-of-life care. It's not an option. And that's why we're bringing this lawsuit, and that's why we're hopeful we'll win eventually.
How important do you think in your work as a counselor, and you're senior counsel with the Thomas More Society, you see these cases all the time, the messaging, right? The medium is the message, as Marshall McLuhan used to say. How important is that, and how much of a gain do they have in that market, in that area?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That really is the primary battle, frankly, in, forming opinions, obviously. And, they're calling it medical aid in dying. That's
medical aid in dying,
exactly. Obviously a euphemism. It's a poll-tested euphemism to try to promote this. This law says nothing in this act constitutes suicide or assisted suicide, quote unquote. And we think that's pretty clearly an attempt to even prevent our plaintiffs from using the words assisted suicide as distinct from other true options. So that's exactly right. They do not even want the true characterization, the true terminology out there, because they know it is so important. When you call something by what it is, it obviously makes a difference. So they're trying to prevent us from doing that. This is really
and you have that huge case, and I believe it's still ongoing in California with Heartbeat, right? It's the same thing. They want to bankrupt Heartbeat because they are out there making such a huge difference with the truth about abortion and all the options for women and families, and helping women and families, which they're always accusing us of not doing, and yet they want to bankrupt Heartbeat International.
they say we're engaging in misleading information out there by promoting the truth. That's why we're challenging the misleading misinformation requirements here, because we know what states like this think those terms mean, promoting truth about, life-saving services.
We are talking with Michael McHale, Senior Counsel with Thomas More Society. Let me give you their fantastic website for more details on this and other cases for which they're fighting, thomasmoresociety.org. Of course, Thomas More, named after the saint, M-O-R-E, thomasmoresociety.org. So you've been at this for a while. How far do you think we've gone in the last few years, Michael? What are you seeing?
It seems like after Dobbs, the ante's been upped big time after the Supreme Court struck down Roe v. Wade. Obviously, that was about abortion, but there's a crossover here, clearly, the dignity of human life. And, yes, the speech censorship, the speech mandates, we're facing the New York Attorney General, the California Attorney General, both involving abortion pill reversal. They can't stand that we're promoting truth, so they're bringing false claims acts. And it seems clear Illinois is trying to set up the same kind of regime here by prohibiting misleading information about assisted suicide and misinformation. So, yeah, it seems like sort of the gloves are off now, and governments are going full bore attacking the promotion of truth. So we really need the court systems to step up here and recognize the clear limitations, the clear protections of the First Amendment. And unfortunately, it may require multiple appeals to the Supreme Court. So I would say we need a lot of prayer as well. The Supreme Court this is obvious, but they're overwhelmed with work. They often turn down good cases. So we really need clarification and ultimately intervention from the Supreme Court, I think, here. And really in the heartbeat case as well. Those cases, the abortion pill reversal case, speech cases seem destined for the Supreme Court. Really, any one of these cases could shed light and clarity across the board and provide protection against these government attempts at censorship and compelled speech. But, we don't know. We got to fight on all fronts and hope and pray that, God willing, our clients prevail.
In terms of your own caseload, the work we were talking during the break that you need more attorneys to come forward and work with you, correct?
Yeah, because the attacks are nonstop, and these are difficult fights. It takes teams of attorneys to put together big lawsuits like this and to fight them vigorously. We're fighting against Solicitor General offices in state attorney general's offices, and when certain administrations are in the presidential office, we're fighting against the U.S. Solicitor General's office, and these are incredible lawyers that we go against, and they're difficult, long fights. It takes a lot of work, and it really is a challenge to, like you were saying during the break as well, it's kind of a whack-a-mole. So to keep up the level of work we need across the country in multiple states, we really need, I think it is a call for more lawyers to consider, more law students to consider public interest law, and sort of becoming experts in this area of law, and kind of joining the fight. It's a battle. It's a great battle. Really, it's a great area of law to work in, but it's difficult. It's a spiritual battle as well. We noticed the day we filed this lawsuit in Illinois, there was a massive outbreak of tornadic weather in Chicago. It just
shocker.
Spiritual dynamics are clear.
Yeah, it's huge because you are dealing with diabolical things. You're dealing with these things are right out of the pit of hell, and so there's no reason why you shouldn't be attacked. I guess that's a sign that you're doing the right thing. What can Catholics do? Because here's the thing: I want people. This is why we talk so much about these important stories and these cases. A lot of people, they're very busy with their own lives. I get that, especially if they have children and they're working. But we have to be aware, and we cannot take what we have right now with religious freedom in terms of this particular administration, not perfect, far from it. I'd love to see more from a pro-life perspective, but in terms of religious liberty, at least we're being supported in that way. But then again, you still have all these crazy lawsuits that are going on. What would you like Catholics to know about our culture right now in the United States, Michael, before we let you go?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say people listening to you, spread the word to like-minded Catholics. And like you said, so many people are busy with families, and that's understandable. But spreading the word and getting more knowledge out there about what's going on. I've heard a lot of people were surprised. A lot of people didn't even know Illinois passed an assisted suicide law. A lot of people think it's still sort of off in the corner of the country in Washington and Oregon. But in the last few years, handful of years, it really has spread. So just an awareness and then prayer and then, everyone spreading the word as much as you can. I think there is a lot of common sense in this country, but it's tough to keep up with what's going on. And the other side uses that to push its agenda. So,
oh yeah, sure it does.
Well, more prayer as well, obviously.
Yeah, and also this whole thing with these communists and socialists running for office. God forbid if any of them get to a high position, what they're calling for is an end to the Supreme Court, end to the police, end to the prisons, and they're very serious about it. So if we don't think this is a reality, then we better wake up and smell the cappuccino, as I like to say. But we're so grateful for you, Michael, and your faith and your wonderful, fine legal organization. Michael McHale, Senior Counsel with the Thomas More Society. Check out their great website, and they do great work. And it is thomasmoresociety.org. We'll be right back. Hello. That's chatting with my producer, which we do a lot of. We talk to each other. What a concept. And we have meetings. Every week we discuss the topics and issues and try to bring you the most current stories that affect all of us in the one holy Catholic and apostolic faith. Big happy celebration coming up this weekend. So excited and so proud to be a part of the EWTN network. We're celebrating 45 years. Woohoo! We're going to have a holy party. And it's going to start tomorrow at 9:15 Eastern with my friend Raymond Arroyo from the world over. He's joining us. And, of course, on a Friday, we're also going to have Fact Check Friday. I don't even know what story I'm going to do yet. There's so many. See, this is what I do. I pray. I read the news. I do research. I pray. Do research. Read the news. See what's happening. What, Lord, do you want me to talk about today? Or should I change it? And there's often times I get a little nudge. And it's got to be the Holy Spirit because I'm, not that smart. Saying, no, do this instead. Or something will just drop in my lap, another story, and I'll say, oop, I got to change gears. And my poor producers, but they get it now. They get me that I respond to the news, and they're so with it. So it's a great team with whom I work. So I don't know what Fact Check Friday is going to be, but I do know it is going to be, as it always is, about the media and what we can do to make a difference. So that gives you an idea. And then we're going to talk with the folks from Massachusetts Right to Life. Imagine how they're feeling this week after what they saw in their governor's office. We'll discuss, and we'll also talk about all the good pro-life efforts that are still ongoing in the good state of Massachusetts. Have a great Thursday. Talk to you tomorrow.